On a freezing night, Jude, an exhausted homeless college student, struggling to earn enough to pay his tuition, suddenly finds an elderly woman collapsed in a dark alley behind an upscale restaurant. After a brief hesitation, instinct overrides fear. He races off to get help, even handing over his last $50 just to call 911. He saves her life and thinks the ordeal is over, until the next morning when a luxury car pulls up and a man steps out, calling Jude by name, setting off a twist no one could have predicted. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from, and subscribe because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. The fluorescent lights in Lambert Community College's library buzzed like angry wasps. Jude Brooks jerked awake, his cheek peeling off the sticky surface of a chemistry textbook. "Hey, you, library's closing." The security guard stood 3 feet away, arms crossed. His name tag read Dennis, but his expression screamed, "I don't get paid enough for this." Jude sat up fast, wincing as his neck cracked. "Yeah, sorry, I'm going. You've been sleeping here 3 nights this week." Dennis's voice wasn't unkind, just tired. "Look, kid, I get it, but this isn't a shelter. Someone complains to the dean, and I gotta do something about it." Jude grabbed his backpack, everything he owned, crammed into one torn North Face knockoff, and slung it over his shoulder. The weight made him lean slightly to the left. "Won't happen again," Jude muttered, heading for the door. Dennis sighed behind him. "That's what you said Tuesday." The November air hit like a slap. Lambert, Pennsylvania wasn't the kind of town you saw in movies. Just gray buildings, cracked sidewalks, and the constant smell of the paper mill 2 towns over. The community college sat on the edge of everything, a squat collection of concrete blocks that looked like they'd been designed by someone who hated young people. Jude pulled his gray hoodie tighter. The zipper had broken 2 months ago, so he just clutched the fabric closed with one fist as he walked. His sneakers had holes in them, not the kind you could see from the outside, but the kind that let in every puddle, every chunk of slush. A couple walking past gave him a wide berth. The woman clutched her purse tighter. Her husband put his arm around her shoulders, steering her to the far edge of the sidewalk. Jude kept his head down. Eye contact invited questions, suspicion, sometimes confrontation. Better to be invisible. He cut through the back parking lot and found his spot, a bench behind the maintenance shed. He sat down and for the first time all day, let himself stop moving. His stomach growled. From his backpack's outer pocket, he pulled out half a granola bar. The wrapper was torn, the bar itself crushed into chunks, but it was food. He ate it slowly, making it last. Tomorrow was Friday, November 18th. The date was burned into his brain because it was a deadline. He pulled out his phone screen, cracked battery at 9%, and read the email again, even though he'd memorized every word. "Mr. Brooks, this is your final notice regarding your outstanding balance of $300 for the fall semester. Payment must be received by 8:00 a.m. Friday, November 18th, or your enrollment will be terminated effective immediately. $300. That's all that stood between him and complete disaster. He closed his eyes. How the hell had it come to this? His dad was doing 8 years in Rockview for armed robbery. Mom got out last spring after 18 months for check fraud, but she'd fallen right back in with her old crowd. Last Jude heard, she was in Allentown, using again. Growing up, he'd sworn he wouldn't end up like them. He'd gotten his GED at 16, worked 2 jobs, saved every penny. When he'd gotten accepted to Lambert Community College with partial financial aid, he'd actually cried. But plans required money, and money required stability, and stability was something Jude Brooks had never known. He'd lost his apartment in September when his roommate bailed, lost his dishwashing job in October when the restaurant owner's nephew needed work. He'd been sleeping in the library in his car until it got repossessed in the campus gym locker room until security cracked down, and through all of it, he'd kept going to class, kept turning in assignments, kept showing up because that student ID card in his wallet was his ticket out. Without it, he was nothing. Jude unzipped his hoodie and pulled off his left sneaker. The sole had separated from the upper, held together with duct tape. He peeled back the insole. Underneath, rolled tight, and wrapped in a plastic sandwich bag was every dollar he'd managed to scrape together over the past 3 months. His hands shook as he pulled it out. He'd washed dishes under the table at Chen's Kitchen 15-hour shifts, no breaks paid in cash. $7 an hour. Mr. Chen knew Jude was desperate and paid him half what he'd pay anyone else, but Jude took it because he had no choice. He donated plasma twice a week until they told him he was anemic. He'd returned bottles and cans, sold his textbooks, sold his winter coat, sold everything that wasn't nailed down. And here it was. 3 months of hell rolled into a tight cylinder. Jude peeled back the plastic and counted it. Again, 53 $20 bills, 4 10s, 6 5s, the rest in crumpled ones. $300 exactly. His chest felt tight. This money represented every humiliation, every skipped meal, every frozen night. This was his sweat, his blood, his refusal to quit. Tomorrow morning, he'd walk into that financial aid office and keep his spot in school. He'd stay enrolled. He'd keep fighting. Jude rewrapped the money, stuffed it back into his shoe, and laced the sneaker tight. He pulled out his student ID and stared at it. Jude Brooks, student ID 847392, status active. I'm not my parents, he whispered. I'm not ending up like them. I'm getting out. He stood up, shouldered his backpack, and started walking. He had a spot under an overpass about 2 miles from campus. As he walked, he passed Lambert's downtown district, 3 blocks of struggling businesses and boarded up storefronts. But there was one fancy restaurant, Giovanni's, that somehow survived. Rich people from Harrisburg drove out for anniversaries and business dinners. The restaurant sat on the corner of 5th and Main, and behind it was an alley that Jude sometimes cut through. He turned into it now, his breath fogging in the cold air. That's when he saw her. At first, he thought it was a pile of garbage bags, but then the pile moved. It was a woman slumped against the brick wall next to a dumpster, half hidden in shadow. She wore a fur coat that probably cost more than Jude would make in a year. Jewelry glinted at her wrist and throat. Her purse had fallen a few feet away, its contents spilled across the wet pavement, and she wasn't moving right. Jude's first instinct was to keep walking. Getting involved when you were broke and homeless was a recipe for disaster. Cops showed up, saw what he looked like, and suddenly he was a suspect. But the woman made a sound, a weak, desperate gasp. Jude's feet carried him forward. He crouched down next to her, and up close he could see she was old, 70, maybe older. Her face was gray lips tinged blue. One side of her mouth drooped. Her right hand trembled violently. "Ma'am!" Jude's voice cracked. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her eyes found his, dark, sharp, even through obvious pain. She tried to speak, but only a garbled moan came out. Stroke or a heart attack? Jude didn't know the difference, but he knew it was bad. "I'm gonna help you." His mind raced. "I need to call 911. He reached for his phone, then remembered no service. He'd let the plan lapse 2 months ago. The woman's hand closed around his wrist, surprisingly strong. She made another sound, urgent, and her eyes tracked to the purse. Jude grabbed the purse and dumped it. Lipstick, wallet, keys, and a phone in a leather case. He snatched it up and pressed the power button. Face ID. He held it up to the woman's face, but her head lolled to the side. He tried again, angling it, but the phone wouldn't unlock. Damn it. The woman's grip on his wrist tightened, then loosened. Her eyes were starting to drift. "No, no, no, stay with me." Jude looked around wildly. "Help, somebody help!" His voice echoed off the brick walls. Nobody came. Giovanni's back door was closed. The street was empty. Jude's heart hammered. This woman was dying, and he was the only person who could do anything about it. His survival instincts screamed, "Run! This isn't your problem. They'll blame you." But the woman's eyes were still on him, pleading. She was somebody's mother, somebody's grandmother, and she was terrified. Jude made a decision. "I'm not leaving you," he said. He shrugged off his hoodie and bundled it under her head as a pillow. The cold bit through his t-shirt immediately. "Just hold on." He spotted a 24-hour convenience store 2 blocks down on Main Street. They'd have a phone. "I'll be right back." Then he ran. Jude's sneakers slapped against the wet pavement as he sprinted down Main Street. His lungs burned. The cold air felt like knives in his chest, but he didn't slow down. The convenience store's fluorescent sign glowed ahead. "Quick stop, 24/7." Jude grabbed the door handle and yanked it open, stumbling inside. A bell chimed overhead. Behind the counter stood a heavy-set man in his 40s, bald head shining under the harsh lights. He looked up from his phone, and his expression shifted instantly. His hand dropped below the counter. "We're closed," the man said. "The sign says 24 hours. I said we're closed." The man's hand came back up, gripping a wooden baseball bat. He pointed it at Jude. "Get out." Jude raised his hands, palms out. "Please, I just need to use your phone. There's a woman." "I don't give handouts, and I sure as hell don't fall for sob stories." The man's knuckles whitened around the bat. You think I'm stupid. You come in here looking like that, talking about some woman trying to distract me so your buddy can come around back. I wasn't born yesterday, kid. I'm not trying to rob you. Jude's voice cracked with desperation. There's a woman dying in the alley behind Giovanni's. She had a stroke or something. I need to call 911 inches. The man didn't budge. Then call from your own damn phone. My phone doesn't work, please. She doesn't have much time. Not my problem. Get out before I call the cops myself. Jude stared at him, at the bat, at the expression that said this man had already decided who Jude was, what he was, and nothing would change his mind. The woman's face flashed through Jude's mind, those pleading eyes, the gray pallor of her skin. How much time did she have? 5 minutes 10. His hand went to his sneaker. Time was running out. He had to make a decision. How much, Jude heard himself say. What? How much to let me use your phone for 1 minute? Jude's heart hammered. Name your price. The man's eyes narrowed. You're serious. Dead serious. A long pause. The man looked Jude up and down, reassessing. The bat lowered slightly. $50. Jude bent down and started unlacing his left sneaker with shaking fingers. The man watched, suspicious, but curious. Jude pulled off the shoe, peeled back the insole, and unwrapped the plastic bag. His entire future lay in his hands. He counted out 2 20s and a 10 with trembling fingers. Here, $50. Jude held them up. Now let me use the phone. The man snatched the bills from Jude's hand, immediately examining them under the light as if checking for counterfeits. He stuffed them into his pocket without a word, his face showing no hint of guilt or reconsideration. Phone's over there. He pointed to a landline mounted on the wall near the bathroom, his tone flat and businesslike. Make it quick. Jude shoved the remaining money back into the plastic bag, his hands shaking as he tried to count, but there was no time. He stumbled to the wall phone, his heart pounding. He'd just given away $50. $50 he couldn't afford to lose. But the woman was dying. His fingers fumbled with the receiver. He punched 911. 1 ring. 2 rings. 911, what's your emergency? The words tumbled out. There's a woman, she's having a stroke or heart attack. I don't know, she's in the alley behind Giovanni's restaurant on 5th and Main. She needs an ambulance right now. Sir, slow down. What's the address? Giovanni's restaurant, 5th and Main. Jude's voice rose. The alley behind it. She's old. She can't talk. One side of her face is drooping. Okay, we're dispatching an ambulance now. Can you stay with her until they arrive? Yes, I'm going back there now. What's your name, sir? Jude's hand tightened on the receiver. His name. If he gave his name, it went on record. If anything went wrong, if they thought he'd hurt her, if her jewelry was missing. But the woman was dying. Jude Brooks, he said. I'm heading back there now. He slammed the phone down and turned to leave. The man behind the counter was already back on his phone, the $50 safely in his pocket, his face showing no emotion whatsoever. He didn't look up as Jude ran out the door. The alley was still empty when he got back. The woman lay where he'd left her, his hoodie under her head. Her chest rose and fell in shallow gasps. Jude dropped to his knees beside her. I called them. They're coming. Just hold on, okay? Just hold on. Her eyes found his again. That same sharp intelligence trapped in a failing body. Her working hand reached up trembling and grabbed the front of his t-shirt, pulled him closer. She was trying to say something. Her mouth moved, but only garbled sounds came out. Frustration creased her face. Don't try to talk, Jude said. Save your strength. But she didn't let go. She held his shirt, held his gaze, and in her eyes, Jude saw something he hadn't expected: gratitude. Not pity, not fear. Just pure, simple gratitude. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. The woman's grip loosened. Her hand fell back to her lap. But she didn't look away from him. You're gonna be okay, Jude said, though he had no idea if it was true. You're gonna be fine. The sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights flickered against the alley walls. Jude stood up quickly. His survival instincts kicked back in, screaming at him. Cops would be with the paramedics. Cops would see him, a homeless kid in a hoodie hovering over a rich old lady. They'd ask questions. They'd run his name. They'd see his parents' records. They'd assume the worst. The ambulance pulled up to the alley entrance. Doors slammed. Voices shouted. Jude looked down at the woman one last time. She was still watching him. I'm sorry, he whispered. I have to go. Then he grabbed his hoodie from under her head, turned, and disappeared into the shadows at the far end of the alley. Jude ran until his lungs felt like they'd collapse. He didn't stop until he was 6 blocks away, ducking into a park where the streetlights had burned out years ago. He collapsed onto a bench, gasping. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. What did I just do? He'd given his name to 911. That was on record now. If something went wrong, if the woman died, if her jewelry was gone, if someone saw him run and thought he was fleeing the scene, his name was attached to it, and the money. Jude pulled off his sneaker with trembling hands and dumped out the plastic bag. Bills spilled onto the bench. He counted them under the dim moonlight, his heart sinking with each one. $250. He'd given that man $50. $50 he desperately needed. $50 the man had taken without hesitation, without guilt, without a second thought. No, 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 no. Jude's voice cracked. He counted again. Same result. $250. 50 short. The financial aid office wouldn't care about his story. They wouldn't care that he'd saved a woman's life. Rules were rules. $300 by 8 a.m. or he was done. Jude pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes. He would not cry. He'd stopped crying years ago when crying didn't fix anything, but his throat felt tight and his chest ached, and for the first time in months, the weight of everything, the hunger, the cold, the constant fear, the exhausting effort of just surviving, crashed down on him all at once. He'd been so close, so damn close. 3 months of hell reduced to a pile of wrinkled bills that wasn't enough, would never be enough. Jude looked up at the sky. No stars visible through the light pollution and cloud cover, just darkness. I tried, he said to no one. I really tried. His phone buzzed in his pocket, battery at 3%, a notification from the college portal. Reminder payment deadline is 8:0 a.m. tomorrow. No extensions will be granted. Jude laughed. It came out bitter and broken. Of course the universe would remind him right now. He stuffed the money back into the plastic bag, back into his shoe, and laced it up. $250. He could probably use it for a security deposit on a room somewhere. Get a real job, forget about college, become another statistic, become his parents. The thought made him sick. Jude stood up, shouldered his backpack, and started walking. He had nowhere to go, no plan, no future. But he walked anyway, because sitting still hurt worse. The park gave way to residential streets. Nice houses with porches and 2-car garages, lights in windows, families inside watching TV, eating dinner, existing in a world Jude could see but never touch. He pulled his hoodie up and kept walking. By the time he reached the overpass where he usually slept, it was past midnight. The spot under the bridge was dry at least. Concrete pillars blocked most of the wind. Jude spread out his blanket thin, scratchy, bought from Goodwill for $3 and lay down. His backpack became a pillow. The lump of money in his shoe pressed against his heel. Jude stared up at the underside of the bridge. Graffiti covered every surface. Names, dates, crude drawings. Evidence that other people had been here, had existed, had left their mark. He wondered if anyone would remember him when he was gone. Sleep didn't come. His mind replayed the night on loop. The woman's face, the convenience store, the cold way that man had snatched the $50 and pocketed it without hesitation. The ambulance lights? Had she survived? Was she okay? He'd never know. He couldn't exactly call the hospital and ask. Hi, I'm the homeless kid who found your patient and then ran away. How's she doing? Jude rolled onto his side, pulling the blanket tighter. The November cold seeped through the thin fabric, through his clothes, into his bones. Tomorrow, he'd have to face it. Walk into the financial aid office and admit he didn't have enough. Watch Mrs. Henderson's face shift from impatient to pitying as she processed his withdrawal. Sorry, Mr. Brooks, rules are rules. His student ID would be deactivated, his access to the library, the gym, the dining hall gone. He'd become invisible in a different way. Not a student struggling to survive, just another dropout who couldn't hack it. The thought of his parents' faces, smug, vindicated, proven right, made Jude's stomach turn. See, we told you. You're just like us. You'll never be anything. Screw you. Jude whispered into the darkness. Screw all of you. But the words felt empty. Hours passed. Jude drifted in and out of consciousness, too cold to really sleep, too exhausted to stay fully awake. Footsteps echoed somewhere above on the bridge. A bottle shattered in the distance. The sounds of a city that never fully rested. When gray light finally started seeping into the sky, Jude gave up on sleep. He sat up, his back screaming in protest. Everything hurt. His neck, his shoulders, his legs. 18 years old, and his body already felt ancient. He packed up his blanket and started walking. Nowhere specific, just away. The streets were empty at 5 a.m. A few early commuters, a garbage truck, a jogger who gave Jude a wide berth. He walked past the community college. The buildings looked different in the dawn light. Less threatening, more sad. Like they were tired too. Jude found himself at the public library. It wouldn't open until 9, but there was a bench outside. He sat down and watched the sun come up. His phone was dead. He didn't know the exact time, but it didn't matter. Whether it was 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. or noon, the result was the same. He'd failed. A car pulled up to the curb in front of him. Black sedan, expensive, tinted windows. The kind of car Jude had only ever seen in movies. The driver's side door opened and a man stepped out. Mid-40s, sharp suit, graying hair. He looked at Jude with an expression that was hard to read. Jude Brooks. Jude's entire body went rigid. He stood up, ready to run. "Who's asking?" The man held up both hands. "Relax. I'm not a cop. My name is Mark Donovan. I need to talk to you about last night." Jude's heart hammered against his ribs. His eyes darted to the street, calculating escape routes. The man was blocking the most direct path, but if Jude went left, cut through the alley. "My mother wants to thank you," Mark said. Jude froze. "What?" "The woman you saved last night, behind Giovanni's." Mark took a step closer, moving slowly like Jude was a spooked animal. "That was my mother, Brenda Donovan. You called the ambulance. Is she okay?" The question came out before Jude could stop it. "She's alive because of you." Mark's expression softened slightly. "She had a stroke. The doctor said if you'd waited even 10 more minutes, she wouldn't have made it." Relief flooded through Jude, followed immediately by suspicion. "Then why are you looking for me?" "Because you ran. The paramedics said someone called 911, but when they got there, you were gone. My mother kept trying to talk, kept pointing, but she couldn't make the words work." Mark pulled out his phone. "We had to piece together what happened. Called the 911 dispatch, got your name. Talked to the convenience store owner on Main Street. He told us about you." Jude's jaw tightened. "So what do you want? You want your $50 back? I don't have it anymore." "What? No." Mark looked genuinely confused. "We want to thank you properly. My mother is awake. She's asking to see you." "Why?" "Because you saved her life, and she's not the kind of woman who leaves debts unpaid." Mark gestured to the car. "Please, just come to the hospital. Hear her out." Every instinct Jude had screamed trap. Rich people didn't hunt down homeless kids to say thank you. There had to be an angle. "Look," Jude said, backing up a step. "I didn't steal anything. Her purse was on the ground when I got there. You can check. I didn't take anything." Mark's face shifted. Understanding dawned, followed by something that looked like anger, but not at Jude. "Jesus, you think we're accusing you of robbing her? Aren't you?" "No." Mark ran a hand through his hair. "No, Jude, we're not. I know what it looks like. Okay, I know what people probably assumed when they saw you, but my mother is very clear about what happened. You didn't hurt her. You saved her." Jude studied Mark's face, looking for the lie. But the man looked tired, stressed. His suit was expensive, but it was rumpled like he'd slept in it, or hadn't slept at all. "The convenience store owner," Jude said slowly. "What did he tell you?" "That you tried to pay him $50 just to use his phone. That you pulled the money out of your shoe." Mark's voice softened. "That when he said you could keep the money, you told him to keep it anyway because you were in a hurry." "I miscounted," Jude said. "I needed that money." "I know. He told me." Mark pulled a wallet from his jacket and took out a stack of bills. "This is yours. $500. The 50 you left plus interest for your trouble." Jude stared at the money. $500. More than enough for tuition. Enough for food, for a room, for breathing space. It was too much. "I don't want charity," Jude said. "It's not charity. It's payment for services rendered. You saved my mother's life. That's worth a hell of a lot more than $500. Mark held out the money. "Please, take it." Jude's hand stayed at his sides. "Why? Why what? Why do you care?" Jude's voice hardened. "You're rich. Your mom's rich. People like you don't notice people like me unless we're in your way. So why the hell do you care?" Mark was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "You're right. I didn't notice you. When the paramedics first got there, when they said someone had called it in and run off, you know what I thought." He laughed bitterly. "I thought whoever it was had probably attacked her first, tried to rob her, called 911 to cover their tracks. Jude's hands clenched into fists. I was wrong, Mark continued. I was so goddamn wrong, and I'm sorry. My mother could have died alone in that alley, but she didn't because you stopped. You gave up money you clearly needed. You helped a stranger when you had every reason not to. He held out the money again. So please, let me do this one small thing to make up for being an asshole. Jude looked at the money, at Mark's face, at the expensive car idling at the curb. Your mom really wants to see me. She hasn't stopped asking since she could talk again. Jude took a breath, let it out slowly. Okay, but I'm not taking the money. Not yet. Why not? Because I don't trust easy fixes. Jude met Mark's eyes. I'll go see your mom. I'll hear what she has to say. But I'm not taking anything until I know what the catch is. Mark smiled slightly. My mother is going to like you. The hospital was nicer than any building Jude had ever been inside. St. Catherine's Medical Center sat on the north side of town, all glass and steel and landscaped gardens. Mark parked in a visitor spot and led Jude through the main entrance. People stared. Jude felt every eye on him. His dirty hoodie, his torn jeans, his ratty sneakers. He didn't belong here, and everyone knew it. Mark either didn't notice or didn't care. He walked Jude through the lobby past the gift shop and cafeteria to a bank of elevators. She's on the 4th floor, private room. Mark pressed the button. Fair warning, my mother is intense. Don't let her intimidate you. What does that mean? You'll see. The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside. Jude caught his reflection in the mirrored walls and almost didn't recognize himself. When had he gotten so thin? When had his eyes gotten so hollow? He looked away. 4th floor. They walked down a hallway that smelled like antiseptic and sadness. Mark stopped at room 407 and knocked softly. Come in, a voice called. Strong, clear. Not what Jude had expected from someone who'd had a stroke 12 hours ago. Mark opened the door. The room was huge, more like a hotel suite than a hospital room. A massive window overlooked the city. Flowers covered every surface, and in the bed propped up against pillows sat the woman from the alley. Brenda Donovan looked completely different in daylight. Her silver hair was brushed and pinned back. She wore a hospital gown but somehow made it look dignified. An IV ran to her arm and monitors beeped softly beside the bed, but her eyes, those sharp dark eyes, were focused entirely on Jude. Come here, boy, she said. Her voice was slightly slurred on one side, but understandable. Let me see you properly. Jude took a hesitant step into the room. Mark closed the door behind them. Brenda studied Jude like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. Her gaze traveled from his face to his hands to his worn-out shoes and back up again. You're younger than I thought, she finally said. I'm 18. You look 16. You look like you haven't eaten in a week. She turned to Mark. Have you fed him? We just got here, Mom. Then fix it. Order him something from the cafeteria. No, order him something from that Italian place on Morrison, the one with the good lasagna. She waved her hand. Go, Mom. Now, Mark. Mark gave Jude an apologetic look and left the room. The door clicked shut. Brenda gestured to a chair beside the bed. Sit. Jude sat, mostly because his legs were tired, but also because something about this woman made no seem like a bad option. What's your name? Jude Brooks. Jude. She tested it on her tongue. Biblical. Your mother religious. She was more into meth than church. Brenda's eyebrows rose slightly, but she didn't look shocked, just thoughtful. I see. And your father? Prison. For armed robbery. 8 years. Brenda nodded slowly. And you? Are you following in his footsteps? Jude's jaw clenched. No. Good. Because that would be a waste. She leaned back against the pillows, but her eyes never left his face. Tell me what happened last night. You don't remember? I remember pieces. Falling. Pain. Trying to call for help. Then your face. Her expression softened almost imperceptibly. You looked terrified. I was. But you stayed. Yeah. Why? Jude blinked. Because you were dying. So, people die every day. Most folks would have kept walking. Especially someone in your position. Brenda's gaze sharpened. A homeless kid finds a rich old woman in an alley. He runs away, no one knows he was there, no one can blame him for anything. But instead, you gave up money you clearly needed to save me. Why? Jude opened his mouth, closed it. He didn't have a good answer. I don't know, he finally said. It felt like the right thing to do. The right thing to do. Brenda repeated. She laughed a short, sharp sound. Do you know how rare that is, people doing something because it's right, not because it benefits them? I guess. You guess. Brenda shook her head. Jude Brooks, you are either the most naive young man I've ever met or the most decent. I can't quite decide which. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. What do you want from me? Brenda smiled. It transformed her face, made her look younger. Direct. I like that. What do I want? She folded her hands in her lap. I want to offer you a job. A job. Yes. I need a personal assistant, someone quick on their feet, someone loyal, someone who won't rob me blind the moment my back is turned. Her smile widened. Someone who'd pay $50 just to make a phone call for a stranger. Jude stared at her. You can't be serious. I'm always serious, boy. It's a full-time position, room and board included, and I'll pay your tuition. Why? Because I'm 70 years old, I just had a stroke, and I need someone around who gives a damn whether I live or die. Brenda's voice was matter-of-fact. My son cares, but he has his own life. My friends are all ancient or dead. I need someone young, strong, and stupid enough to run into alleys after someone like me. I'm not stupid. Then prove it. Take the job. Jude's mind raced. This was insane. People didn't just offer homeless kids jobs and free housing. There had to be a catch. What would I have to do? Whatever I tell you to do. Run errands, drive me places, keep me company, occasionally save my life. Brenda's expression turned serious. I won't lie to you, Jude. I'm difficult. I'm demanding. I have high standards and very little patience for incompetence. But I'm fair and I pay well, and I think you and I could help each other. Help each other how? I need someone who won't treat me like I'm made of glass, and you need someone who'll teach you how to stop living like you're invisible. Brenda leaned forward slightly. I saw your face last night, before you ran. You were terrified the police would blame you just for being there. Am I right? Jude didn't answer. He didn't have to. That's what I thought. You've spent your whole life making yourself small, trying not to be noticed because being noticed meant trouble. Brenda's voice was gentle now. I can teach you something different. I can teach you how to take up space, how to walk into a room and make people listen, how to be someone. I don't want to be someone, Jude said quietly. I just want to survive. Surviving isn't living, boy. Trust me. I've done both. Brenda held out her hand. It trembled slightly, but her grip looked strong. So what do you say? Do we have a deal? Jude looked at her hand, at her face, at the monitors beeping steadily beside the bed. This woman had almost died. She should be weak, scared, grateful to be alive. Instead, she was offering a job to a complete stranger, making plans, moving forward. She was steel wrapped in old flesh. And for the first time in years, someone was offering Jude a way out, a real way out. Not charity, not pity, but a chance. He thought about the $250 in his shoe, about the tuition deadline that had already passed, about sleeping under overpasses and eating from garbage cans and being invisible. He thought about the woman's eyes in the alley, that desperate pleading look, and later the gratitude. Jude reached out and shook her hand. Deal, he said. Brenda's smile was triumphant. Good. Now let's get you fed and cleaned up. You smell terrible. The Donovan estate sat 20 minutes outside Lambert, behind iron gates and manicured lawns that stretched farther than Jude could throw a stone. Mark drove them up a winding driveway lined with trees that probably cost more than Jude's entire existence. The house mansion really was 3 stories of gray stone and tall windows. Ivy climbed one wall. A fountain burbled in the circular driveway. It looked like something from a movie. Jude pressed his forehead against the car window. You've got to be kidding me. Mom likes her space, Mark said, pulling up to the front steps. Come on, I'll show you around. Inside was worse. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, furniture that looked too expensive to sit on, paintings on the walls that might have been originals. Jude was afraid to touch anything. This is the main living area, Mark said, walking through room after room like they were no big deal. Kitchen's through there. Mom's study is off limits unless she invites you. There's a library on the second floor gym in the basement pool out back. There's a pool. Mom likes to swim. Mark led Jude up a massive staircase. Your room is up here. 3rd door on the left. He opened the door and Jude stopped dead. The room was bigger than any apartment he'd ever lived in. A real bed king-sized with a thick comforter that looked like a cloud, a desk, a dresser, windows overlooking the back gardens, an attached bathroom with a shower that had multiple heads. This is mine. Jude's voice came out hoarse. It is now. Mark walked in and opened the closet. "Mom had me pick up some clothes for you. They might not fit perfectly, but they'll do until we can get you properly sized. Shoes are in here too." Jude looked at the clothes hanging in the closet. Real clothes, clean clothes, new clothes. "I can't pay for this." "You don't have to. It's part of the job." Mark turned to face him. "Look, I know this is a lot. I know it's overwhelming, but my mother means what she says. She wants you here. She wants to help." "Why?" Jude sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress was so soft he sank into it. "She doesn't even know me." "She knows enough." Mark leaned against the doorframe. "My mother is one of the best judges of character I've ever met. She built a company from nothing, dealt with sharks and con artists for 50 years, and never once got fooled. If she trusts you, there's a reason. What if I screw up? Then you fix it. Mom doesn't expect perfection. She expects effort." Mark checked his watch. "She'll be home from the hospital in a few days. Until then, get settled. Eat. Sleep in a real bed. Let yourself breathe." He left, closing the door softly behind him. Jude sat on the bed for a long time, just staring at the room, at the clean carpet, at the curtains that actually matched, at the bathroom door, beyond which was a shower with hot water and soap and towels that weren't threadbare. This had to be a dream, or a trick. Things like this didn't happen to people like him, but his backpack sat on the floor where he'd dropped it. His worn-out sneakers left dirty prints on the carpet. He was real. This was real. Jude stood up and walked to the bathroom, flicked on the light. The mirror above the sink showed him what he looked like, gaunt, filthy, exhausted. A stranger. He turned on the shower. Steam filled the room within seconds. He stripped off his clothes, noticed how loose they hung, how his ribs showed, and stepped under the spray. The hot water hit his skin, and Jude Brooks, 18 years old, homeless for 3 months, broke down and cried. Not quiet tears, not dignified sadness. Ugly, gasping sobs that tore out of his chest like they'd been trapped there for years. He pressed his forehead against the tile and let it all out, the fear, the hunger, the exhaustion, the shame, the anger at his parents, at the world, at himself for not being stronger. He cried until the water ran cold. Then he dried off, put on the soft pajamas Mark had left, and crawled into the bed. The sheets smelled like lavender. The pillow cradled his head like hands. Jude pulled the comforter up to his chin, and for the first time in months felt safe. He was asleep in 30 seconds. Jude woke to sunlight streaming through windows he'd forgotten to close. For a panicked moment, he thought he'd overslept, that campus security would find him, that he'd missed something important. Then he remembered. He sat up slowly. The room was still there. Real. Solid. Not a dream. His phone sat on the nightstand. Mark must have plugged it in. The screen showed 11:43 a.m. and a dozen missed calls from the college. Jude ignored them. It didn't matter anymore. He got dressed in the new clothes. Jeans that actually fit. A plain t-shirt that didn't have holes. Socks without worn-through heels. He looked at himself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. Downstairs, he found the kitchen. It was massive, all stainless steel and marble counters. A woman in her 50s was wiping down the stove. "Oh," she jumped slightly. "You must be Jude. I'm Patricia. I cook and clean for Mrs. Donovan." She smiled warmly. "Are you hungry? I can make you something." Yes. Thank you." "Sit." Patricia pointed to a stool at the counter. "How do you feel about eggs toast? There's fresh fruit, orange juice, coffee if you want it." Jude sat. "Anything is fine." Patricia studied him for a moment, not judgmental, just assessing, then nodded and got to work. Within minutes, a plate appeared in front of him, scrambled eggs, crispy bacon toast, with butter, a small fruit salad, and a glass of orange juice, so fresh it had pulp. Jude stared at it. "Go on," Patricia said gently. "Eat." He picked up the fork. The first bite of eggs was so good he almost cried again. He forced himself to eat slowly, even though every instinct screamed to shovel it in as fast as possible. Patricia busied herself around the kitchen, giving him space but staying close. When he finished, she took the plate without comment and brought him more toast. "Mrs. Donovan called this morning," Patricia said. "She'll be home tomorrow. She wanted me to make sure you're comfortable." "I am, thank you." "Good," Patricia smiled. "She also said to tell you that being comfortable doesn't mean being lazy. She expects you ready to work by the time she gets home." "Work doing what?" "Whatever she tells you to do." Patricia's smile turned slightly amused. "Fair warning, Mrs. Donovan is particular." She has routines, standards. She'll test you, push you, try to figure out if you're worth the investment. What if I'm not? Then she'll tell you. Patricia's expression softened. But between you and me, Mrs. Donovan doesn't waste time on people she doesn't believe in. If she brought you here, it's because she sees something. Jude wanted to ask what that something was, but Mark appeared in the doorway. There you are, feeling better. Yeah, thanks for the clothes. Don't thank me. Thank Mom. She picked everything out over the phone from her hospital bed. Mark grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl. Come on, I'll show you the rest of the property. They spent the afternoon walking the grounds. Mark pointed out the pool house, the garden shed, the garage that held 3 cars Jude had only seen in magazines. He explained the security system showed Jude where the spare keys were kept, gave him the codes to the gates. Mom values loyalty above everything, Mark said as they walked back toward the house. Work hard, be honest, don't steal or lie, and you'll be fine. But cross her. He shook his head. Don't cross her. That night, Jude ate dinner at a table meant for 12, just him and Mark. Patricia served pot roast with vegetables, and Jude had to keep reminding himself this was real, this was his life now. After dinner, he went back to his room, sat on the bed, looked at his backpack in the corner, everything he'd owned, everything he'd been reduced to one ratty bag. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Brenda. Stop overthinking. Get some sleep. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Jude stared at the message. How had she known? He texted back, okay. The response came immediately, and Jude, thank you for staying. Jude set the phone down, lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling. He'd made a choice in that alley, given up his future to save a stranger, and somehow, impossibly, that choice had saved him instead. Tomorrow, Mrs. Brenda Donovan would come home, and his new life would really begin, whatever that meant. For the first time in years, Jude let himself hope. 3 months passed like a fever dream. Brenda came home from the hospital and immediately put Jude to work. Not the kind of work he'd expected, running errands, fetching things, but something harder. She was teaching him. Stand up straight, she'd snap when he slouched. You're not apologizing for existing anymore. Look me in the eye when you speak. People who won't meet your gaze are either liars or cowards, and you're neither. Stop saying sorry every 5 seconds. You haven't done anything wrong. She critiqued everything, how he walked, how he ate, how he dressed. She hired a tutor to fill the gaps in his education. She made him read the newspaper every morning and discuss current events over breakfast. She was relentless, exhausting, and somehow exactly what Jude needed. You think I'm being cruel, she said one day when he was particularly frustrated. I'm not. I'm being practical. The world judges people in the first 10 seconds. Fair, no. Reality, yes. I'm teaching you how to make those 10 seconds count. But she wasn't all sharp edges. Sometimes late at night, Jude would find her in the library, and they'd talk, really talk, about her late husband who died 15 years ago, about building her company from scratch in an era when women weren't supposed to do that, about loneliness and legacy and what mattered at the end of the day. You remind me of myself, she said once, angry at the world but too stubborn to quit. I'm not angry. Liar. But she smiled. Keep that anger, Jude. Just learn to aim it properly. Jude enrolled back in Lambert Community College. Brenda had paid his tuition personally, had called the dean, and made it clear that Jude Brooks was under her protection. The dean had stammered an apology and reinstated him immediately. Classes felt different now. Jude showed up well-fed, well-rested in clean clothes. Other students still didn't talk to him much. He was quiet, kept to himself, but the desperate edge was gone. He could focus on learning instead of just surviving. And through it all, Brenda pushed him, challenged him, refused to let him hide. You're going to the fundraiser with me, she announced one morning in early February. Jude looked up from his breakfast. What fundraiser? The Lambert Education Foundation's annual gala. It's next Saturday. Black tie. Very boring, very expensive, very necessary. Brenda sipped her tea. I'm on the board. I have to go. You're coming with me. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't recall asking your opinion. Mrs. Donovan, Brenda. I've told you 100 times, call me Brenda. Brenda, Jude corrected. I don't belong at something like that. I'll stick out. People will stare. Let them stare. You're my guest. They can deal with it. She set down her teacup. Besides, you need the practice. You can't hide forever. Jude wanted to argue, but he'd learned over the past 3 months that arguing with Brenda was like arguing with a brick wall. The wall always won. On Saturday evening, Mark took Jude to get fitted for a tuxedo. The tailor was a nervous little man who kept stealing glances at Jude like he expected him to bolt. "Stand still," the tailor muttered around a mouthful of pins. Jude stood still. He barely recognized himself in the mirror. The tuxedo transformed him, made him look older, polished, like someone who belonged in Brenda's world. "You clean up nice," Mark said, leaning against the wall. "Mom's going to be pleased." "I feel like a fraud." "Fake it till you make it. That's what everyone else does." Mark's expression turned more serious. "Fair warning, some of the people at this thing are going to be assholes. Old money types who think their trust funds make them better than everyone else. Don't let them get to you." "I won't. And if anyone gives you trouble, find me or Mom. We'll handle it." Jude nodded, but his stomach was already churning with dread. The gala was held at the Lambert Grand Hotel, the fanciest building in town. Jude had walked past it 1,000 times when he was homeless, watching rich people come and go, knowing he'd never be allowed through those doors. Now he was walking through them in a tuxedo with Brenda on his arm. She looked regal in a black evening gown, her silver hair swept up diamonds at her throat. People turned to look as they entered. Some smiled and waved. Others whispered behind their hands. "Ignore them," Brenda murmured. "They're just surprised I'm still alive." The ballroom was enormous. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Round tables draped in white linen filled the space. A string quartet played in one corner. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that probably cost more per bite than Jude used to spend on a week's worth of food. "Brenda, darling." A woman in her 60s descended on them, air-kissing Brenda's cheeks. "We were so worried when we heard about your stroke. Thank God you're all right." "I'm fine, Margaret. Tough as nails." Brenda gestured to Jude. "This is Jude Brooks. He's working with me." Margaret's smile didn't quite reach her eyes as she looked Jude up and down. "How lovely. Welcome, Jude." "Thank you, ma'am." More people approached. More introductions. More polite smiles that didn't hide the calculation in their eyes. Jude shook hands until his palm hurt and smiled until his face felt frozen. "You're doing fine," Brenda whispered during a lull. "Stop looking like you're about to be executed." "I feel like I'm in a shark tank." "You are, but you're with the biggest shark here, so relax." Dinner was announced. Jude followed Brenda to their table. Thankfully, they were seated with Mark and a few of Brenda's closer friends, who seemed genuinely kind. The food was incredible, some kind of fancy chicken vegetables Jude couldn't name dessert that looked like a work of art. He was halfway through his meal when he saw them. 3 tables over a group of younger people, late 20s, early 30s, dressed in designer clothes that screamed wealth. One of them, a guy with slicked back blonde hair and a smile like a knife, was staring directly at Jude. Their eyes met and recognition flashed across the guy's face. His smile widened. Jude's stomach dropped. Grant Patterson. They'd gone to the same high school, though Grant had been 2 years ahead. Grant's family owned half the real estate in Lambert. Grant had never worked a day in his life, coasted through school on his father's donations, and made a hobby out of tormenting anyone he deemed beneath him. Jude had been a favorite target. "Something wrong?" Brenda asked quietly. "No, I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. Grant was whispering to his friends, now gesturing toward Jude. They all turned to look smirking. This was a mistake. Jude should have listened to his instincts. He didn't belong here. After dinner, there were speeches. The foundation director droned on about scholarship programs and educational opportunities. Jude barely heard a word. He was too busy tracking Grant's movements from the corner of his eye. Grant stood up, heading toward the bar. His friends followed like pilot fish trailing a shark. "I need some air," Jude told Brenda. "Don't go far. The auction starts in 20 minutes. Jude nodded and escaped into the hallway. It was quieter out here, less crowded. He found a balcony overlooking the hotel gardens and stepped outside. The February air was cold but clean. It cleared his head. Well, well, well. Jude's shoulders tensed. He turned. Grant stood in the balcony doorway, flanked by 2 of his friends, a guy and a girl, both wearing expressions of amused contempt. "Jude Brooks," Grant said, walking closer. "Never thought I'd see you at an event like this. What happened? Did they lower the dress code? I'm here as someone's guest." "Oh, we know. Everyone's talking about it." Grant leaned against the railing. "Brenda Donovan's little charity project. That's what they're calling you. Jude's jaw tightened. I should get back inside. Not so fast. Grant moved to block his path. I'm just curious. How'd you manage it? Did you lie about your background, pretend to be something you're not? His smile was vicious. Because I remember you, Jude. I remember exactly what you are. And what's that? Trailer trash. Your dad's in prison. Your mom's a junkie. You used to dig through our garbage looking for bottles to return for the deposit. Grant's voice rose slightly. So forgive me if I'm having trouble believing you actually belong here. The girl giggled. The other guy grinned. Jude's hands clenched into fists. Every muscle in his body screamed to punch Grant's smug face. But Brenda's voice echoed in his head. Keep that anger. Just learn to aim it properly. You're right, Jude said quietly. I'm not like you. I've actually had to work for things. Grant's smile faltered for just a second. Then it came back colder. Tough words from someone wearing a borrowed tux. It's not borrowed. Sure it's not. Grant straightened up. Look, I'll make this simple. Whatever con you're running on, Mrs. Donovan, it's not going to work. People like you don't get to just join our world. Eventually, she'll figure out what you really are, and you'll be right back in whatever gutter she pulled you from. Grant, save it. Just stay away from people who matter. Okay, you're embarrassing yourself. Grant and his friends walked back inside, their laughter echoing behind them. Jude stood alone on the balcony shaking, not from cold, from rage, from humiliation, from the sick certainty that Grant was right. He didn't belong here, would never belong here, and trying to pretend otherwise was a joke. He stayed outside for another 10 minutes, breathing deeply, getting himself under control. When he finally went back inside, the auction had started. Brenda was bidding on something, a vacation package maybe. She glanced at him and frowned slightly, but didn't say anything. Jude took his seat and tried to focus on the auction, tried to ignore the whispers he could almost hear, tried to forget Grant's words, but they stuck, wormed their way into his brain and settled there poisonous and persistent. Trailer trash, charity project, you don't belong. The auction ended. People mingled, networking, making deals. Jude stayed close to Brenda, saying little smiling when appropriate. That's when things went wrong. Jude excused himself to use the restroom. When he came back out, Grant was waiting with his entourage, all of them holding drinks. Excuse me, Jude said, trying to move past. Grant stepped in front of him. Hey, no hard feelings about before, right? He held out his glass. Here, peace offering. Jude looked at the glass of red wine, at Grant's too wide smile, at the barely suppressed laughter on his friends' faces. I'm good, thanks. Come on, don't be rude. Grant pushed the glass closer, and then he stumbled. Or pretended to. The wine splashed across the front of Jude's white dress shirt, spreading in a dark crimson stain. Oh my God. Grant's voice was loud, drawing attention. I'm so sorry, you bumped me. People turned to look. Conversation stopped. It's fine, Jude said through gritted teeth. It was an accident. Here, let me help. Grant reached forward with a napkin and deliberately smeared the stain worse. Oh no, I'm making it worse. More people gathered. Jude could feel their eyes on him on the ruined shirt on Grant's performance. Seriously, it's fine. Wait a minute. One of Grant's friends, the girl, pointed at Jude's pocket. What's that? Jude looked down. A glint of metal peeked from his tuxedo pocket. Grant reached over and pulled out a watch. An expensive watch. Jude had never seen it before in his life. Is this Brandon's watch? Grant held it up. His voice carried across the crowd. Brandon's been looking for this all night. That's not mine, Jude said. I've never seen that before. It was in your pocket. You put it there. Why would I do that? Grant's expression was perfect innocence, but his eyes were full of triumph. Unless, oh God, did you steal it? The crowd murmured. People backed away slightly. I didn't steal anything. Jude's voice rose. He planted it. He's calling you a liar, Grant, one of the other guys said, in front of everyone. I am calling him a liar. Jude's control was slipping. He could feel it, the rage building, the helplessness, the injustice of it all. He's setting me up. Why would he do that? Someone in the crowd asked. And there it was, the question that damned him. Because everyone here knew the answer, even if they wouldn't say it out loud. Grant was rich, respected one of them. Jude was the outsider, the charity case, the kid from the wrong side of town. Of course they'd believe Grant. Someone should call security, the girl said. No need. Grant held up his hands. I'm sure this is all just a misunderstanding. Right, Jude. Jude looked at Grant's smirking face, at the crowd watching with a mixture of pity and suspicion. at the watch in Grant's hand that Jude had never touched. His hands were shaking, his vision tunneled. Every instinct screamed at him to punch Grant, to wipe that smug smile off his face, to make him hurt the way Jude was hurting. He took a step forward, and then he saw Brenda pushing through the crowd. Their eyes met. She wasn't looking at him with disappointment or anger. She was looking at him with calm certainty, like she was waiting to see what he'd do. Like this was a test. Jude stopped, forced his hands to unclench, forced himself to breathe. "Keep the watch," he said quietly. "I don't want it." He turned and started to walk away. "That's right, run away," Grant called after him. "That's what people like you do best." Jude kept walking, through the crowd, past the staring faces, out into the hallway. He made it to the coat check before Brenda caught up with him. "Jude, stop." He stopped, didn't turn around. Brenda came around to face him. She looked calm, too calm. "I didn't steal anything," Jude said. "I swear to God I didn't." "I know. He planted it on me. He's been harassing me all night, and he—" Jude's voice cracked. "I know what it looks like. I know everyone thinks. No." Brenda's voice was steel. "Do you trust me?" Jude stared at her. "What?" "Simple question. Do you trust me?" Yes." "Then go home. Mark will drive you. Get cleaned up. I'll handle this." "You can't." "Yes, I can, and I will." Brenda's eyes flashed. "That little bastard thinks he can humiliate my guest in front of me. He's about to learn a very expensive lesson. Brenda, if you make a scene, it'll just make things worse. I'm 70 years old, Jude. I've been making scenes since before that boy's father was born. Go home. Trust me." Mark appeared from somewhere, keys in hand. "Come on, let's go." Jude looked between them. Then, because he didn't know what else to do, he left. The ride home was silent. Jude stared out the window, replaying the night in his head. The wine, the watch, Grant's triumphant smile, the way people had looked at him. You don't belong here. Maybe Grant was right. Maybe this whole thing, Brenda the house, the second chance, was just delaying the inevitable. Eventually, everyone would see what he really was. "Stop spiraling," Mark said. "I'm not." "Yes, you are. I can practically hear you thinking." Mark glanced over. Grant Patterson is a trust fund brat who's never faced consequences in his life. What he did tonight was assault and attempted theft. Mom's going to destroy him. How everyone saw? Not everyone. And Mom doesn't do anything without a plan. Mark pulled into the Donovan estate. Just wait. She'll be home soon. But Brenda wasn't home soon. An hour passed, then 2. Jude paced his room, still in the stained tuxedo shirt, unable to sit still. Finally, around midnight, he heard the front door open. Voices downstairs. Jude left his room and headed for the stairs. Brenda stood in the foyer with Mark, looking tired but satisfied. "How did it go?" Mark asked. "Perfectly." Brenda saw Jude on the stairs. "Come down here, boy. You need to hear this." Jude descended. "What happened?" "Justice." Brenda walked into the study, gesturing for them to follow. She poured herself a brandy from the decanter on her desk. "After you left, I made a phone call. The hotel has security cameras everywhere, including the hallways. I had them pull the footage. And the cameras clearly show Grant Patterson removing a watch from his own pocket and slipping it into yours while he was helping clean up the wine he deliberately threw on you." Brenda sipped her brandy. "I had the hotel manager play the footage for everyone in the ballroom, on the big screen. Twice." Jude's mouth fell open. "You didn't." "I absolutely did. Then I gave a little speech." Brenda's smile was sharp. "Would you like to know what I said?" Mark was grinning now. "Oh, I wish I'd been there for this." "I said," Brenda continued, "that I was deeply disappointed to see the son of such a prominent family behave like a common criminal, that attempting to frame someone for theft, especially someone who had done nothing but exist peacefully, showed a profound lack of character." "What did Grant say?" Jude asked. "Nothing useful. He stammered something about it being a joke that went too far. His father tried to defend him, but I shut that down quickly." Brenda's expression turned colder. "Then I told them about you." "About me?" "About how you found me dying in an alley, how you gave up your last $300 to save my life, how you stayed with me even though you were terrified the police would blame you just for being there." Brenda set down her glass. "I told them that people like Grant look at money as a scorecard, but you measured the worth of a stranger's life against your own future and chose the stranger. That's character, that's integrity, and no amount of money can buy either one." Jude's throat felt tight. "What happened then?" The room was silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Brenda's smile returned. Then I announced that I'm establishing a new scholarship fund, the Jude Brooks Scholarship for students from disadvantaged backgrounds who demonstrate exceptional character. Starting fund $1 million. You what? You heard me. And you, Jude, will be the director of the program. You'll help select recipients. It'll look excellent on your resume when you transfer to a 4-year university. Jude sat down heavily in the nearest chair. I can't. Yes, you can. You will. Brenda walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. Grant Patterson and everyone like him need to understand something. Character matters more than pedigree. Integrity matters more than inheritance. And you, my dear boy, have both in spades. What about Grant? Mark asked. Oh, his night got worse. Brenda's smile turned wicked. His father is a major donor to the Lambert Education Foundation. After my little presentation, 3 other board members approached me. They're furious. Mr. Patterson is being asked to step down from the board. Grant's been banned from foundation events indefinitely, and the watch stunt the hotel is considering pressing charges. You're kidding. I never kid about revenge. Brenda squeezed Jude's shoulder. No one humiliates my people. Not in front of me. Not anywhere. Grant learned that lesson the hard way. Jude looked up at her. This woman who barely knew him 3 months ago. This woman who'd taken a chance on a homeless kid in an alley. This woman who'd just spent an entire evening defending him to people whose opinions she'd valued for decades. Thank you, he said quietly. I don't know how to. Then don't. Just keep being who you are. Brenda's expression softened. You think I helped you tonight. You saved my life, Jude. This was the least I could do. Still, thank you. You're welcome. Now go to bed. We have work to do tomorrow. The scholarship fund won't run itself. Jude went upstairs, but he didn't sleep for a long time. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying Brenda's words. Character matters more than pedigree. Integrity matters more than inheritance. For the first time since the alley, Jude let himself believe it might be true. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the front lawn of what locals now called Brooks House. The name wasn't official. The sign out front read Second Chance Housing Initiative, but everyone in Lambert knew whose vision had built it, whose determination had made it real. Jude Brooks stood on the front porch watching a moving truck pull up to the curb. Another new resident, the 3rd this month. A young woman with 2 kids, and a story probably not so different from his own 5 years ago. Jude, Patricia called from inside. Mrs. Donovan wants to see you. Jude smiled. Some things never changed. He headed inside through the common areas he'd designed himself comfortable, but not luxurious, welcoming, but not institutional. Space for 12 residents at a time, each with their own room, access to counseling, job training, and most importantly, time to figure things out without the constant terror of homelessness. He found Brenda in the small office on the 1st floor, reviewing paperwork in her wheelchair. She'd had another stroke 18 months ago, a mild one, but it had left her legs weak. The wheelchair was temporary, she insisted. Jude had learned not to argue. You wanted to see me. Sit down. I need to talk to you about something. Jude sat. Brenda was 75 now, her hair completely white, her face more lined, but her eyes were still sharp, still missing nothing. I had my lawyer draft some documents, she said. I'm changing my will. Brenda, quiet. Let me finish. She pushed a folder across the desk. The house, the estate, it all goes to Mark, as it should. But the Brooks Scholarship Fund, the Housing Initiative, all of my charitable organizations, they're going to you. Jude opened the folder. The numbers made his head spin. Millions of dollars. Foundations. Endowments. I can't. Yes, you can. You've been running these programs for 3 years. You're brilliant at it. You care about the work, not the credit. Brenda leaned back. Mark is a good businessman, but this isn't his passion. It's yours. These organizations need someone who understands what it's like to need them. I don't know what to say. Say yes, that's all. Brenda's expression turned softer. You saved my life, Jude. Not just in that alley, though, that too. But you reminded me what matters. You reminded me why I built my fortune in the first place, so I could help people who needed it. You gave me everything. No, I gave you a chance. You did the rest. She smiled. I'm very proud of you, you know. You graduated top of your class, got into Penn State, came back here when you could have gone anywhere, built something meaningful. I learned from the best. Damn right you did. Brenda laughed, then coughed. The laugh turned into a longer coughing fit. Jude was on his feet immediately. Should I call Mark? No, I'm fine. But she looked tired. Actually, I could use some air. Take me outside." Jude wheeled her out onto the porch. The moving truck was gone now. The new resident was inside getting settled with Patricia's help. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun dip lower. "Do you remember what I told you that first day in the hospital?" Brenda asked finally. "You said a lot of things. I told you I'd teach you how to fight, how to take up space, how to be someone." She looked at him. "I think we did pretty well." "We did. You're not that scared kid anymore, Jude. You walk into rooms and people listen. You've built something that's going to outlast both of us. You've proven that where you come from doesn't determine where you're going." She reached over and patted his hand. "Your parents would be—" She trailed off. They both knew his parents wouldn't be proud. His father was still in prison. His mother had died 2 years ago from an overdose. Jude had paid for the funeral, but hadn't attended. "The family you choose is more important than the one you're born into," Brenda said quietly. "Remember that." "I will." They sat together as the sun set this odd pair that never should have met, a 75-year-old steel magnate and a 23-year-old who used to sleep under bridges. But fate had brought them together in a dark alley, and somehow, miraculously, they'd saved each other. 6 months later, Jude stood at a podium in the Lambert Grand Hotel, the same ballroom where Grant had tried to destroy him, speaking to a crowd of 300 people at the annual Brooks Scholarship Gala. "When I was 18, he said, I had $300 to my name. It represented 3 months of back-breaking work. It was supposed to keep me in school, keep me from dropping out, keep me from becoming another statistic." The crowd was silent, listening. "I gave it all away in one night to save a stranger's life. And that decision, that one moment of choosing someone else over myself, changed everything." Jude looked at Brenda in the front row, Mark beside her, both of them smiling. "Brenda Donovan didn't just save my life. She taught me how to live it. She taught me that money is a tool, not a trophy. That character matters more than credentials. That the measure of success isn't what you accumulate, but what you give away." He gestured to the screens behind him, showing photos of scholarship recipients and housing initiative graduates. These young people, 47 scholarships this year, 63 residents, helped through the housing program. They're not charity cases. They're investments. They're proof that talent and determination exist everywhere, in every zip code, in every circumstance. They just need a chance. Applause rippled through the crowd. "So tonight, I'm announcing something new. Starting next fall, the Brooks Initiative is expanding to 3 new cities, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Harrisburg. We're going to help hundreds more young people get the education and stability they deserve." Jude's voice grew stronger, because everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves someone who believes in them. Everyone deserves to be seen. The applause grew louder. People stood. Jude saw familiar faces in the crowd, former residents who'd graduated and come back to volunteer, teachers who'd believed in him, even the convenience store owner who'd let him make that desperate call 5 years ago. Grant Patterson was not there. Word was he'd moved to California, funded by his father's money, still learning nothing. After the speeches, after the dinner, after most of the crowd had left, Jude pushed Brenda's wheelchair out onto the same balcony where Grant had confronted him years ago. "Cold out here," Brenda said, pulling her shawl tighter. "Want to go in?" "Not yet." She looked out over the city lights. "Do you remember what I told you that night after the disaster? You told me a lot of things." "I told you that you taught me how to win with grace." Brenda smiled. "I was wrong. You taught me something better, how to lose with dignity and then get back up swinging. That's a much more valuable lesson." Jude crouched down beside her wheelchair. "You know that scholarship fund you started in my name? I'm starting one in yours. The Brenda Donovan Grant for Women Entrepreneurs." "You are not." "Already done. Paperwork's filed. First grants go out in January." Brenda's eyes glistened. "You're incorrigible." "I learned from you." She laughed, then reached out and cupped his face with one trembling hand. "I'm so glad I had that stroke." "That's a terrible thing to say." "It's the truth. If I hadn't collapsed in that alley, I never would have met you. My last years would have been lonely and pointless." Her thumb brushed his cheek. "You gave me purpose again, Jude. You gave me family. You're the best family I've ever had." "Same here, boy. Same here." They sat together as the February wind picked up, as the city lights twinkled below, as the future stretched out ahead of them. Uncertain, but no longer frightening. Jude had learned something important in the past 5 years. The right choice isn't always the easy one. Sometimes it costs you everything you have. Sometimes it means giving up your last $300, your safety, your pride. But sometimes, miraculously, impossibly, sometimes the right choice gives back more than you ever lost. He'd walked into that alley, a desperate, frightened kid with nothing to lose. He'd walked out with everything that mattered, and he'd spent every day since trying to give others the same chance. "Ready to go home?" Jude asked. "Yes, let's go home." Jude wheeled her back inside through the ballroom where he'd once been humiliated, past the spot where Grant had tried to break him toward the future he'd built from the ashes of that terrible night. Behind them, the ballroom lights dimmed one by one. Ahead, the road home beckoned Dot, and for the first time in his life, Jude Brooks wasn't afraid of tomorrow.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.